Breaking news. The US, Japan, Taiwan, Germany, Vietnam, and France have reported their first cases of domestic human-to-human transmissions. You've heard the sixth case being declared in America, 6 cases being declared in France on the same day. Very interesting narrative. And the lack of information coming from the Western governments seems worse than what's happened in China, to be quite honest with you. Very difficult to get any information. Of course, Western governments are trying to avoid a full lockdown like we're seeing right now in China. We're going to be covering what we do know about this virus, the statistics and the figures from the medical journals as they're being published right now, case studies and the like. We're learning quite a bit about the incubation period as well as what happens after the infection. We're going to be comparing this to SARS a little bit, looking at the videos. Of course, they should be calling this the drop dead syndrome, not some kind of SARS virus, because people are literally dropping dead right there in broad daylight. And it's been described as a very demonic type of virus. We've been seeing people trying to infect other people on purpose, numerous videos of that. It seems like this virus has a mind of its own. The World Health Organization has declared this a national emergency, an international emergency, we should say. They should be declaring the 5G an international emergency because that's weakening people's immune systems, according to scientific studies as well. And that's the real reason why the cold virus has become a bigger killer in the past couple of years. Check out this video of an infected person spitting on, public surfaces to try and infect people. We're getting all sorts of reports like this, and much, much worse from the crisis zone, from ground zero out there in China. But the situation is getting worse in Western countries. We're seeing human-to-human transmission outside of China, and so that means that this virus is spreading, and it's probably much worse than what authorities are letting on. And if you pay attention to, the news updates, where they're referencing, some kind of press conference with, Health and Human Services or some other kind of bureaucrat. You just can't find these news conferences. They're just clipping them down. You don't see the questions and answers and the like. It's become very suspicious. We're going to be getting into the incubation period, which looks to be at about 3 to 4 days, according to the latest figures, with the onset of, sudden acute respiratory syndrome about a week after the first symptoms of fever and coughing. But the scientific journals make it seem like infection happens rather quickly, and then there's a progression of the intensive care, which tends to be about 10 days after the first symptoms appear. So we have this kind of ramp-up period between onset of first symptoms and actual, sudden acute respiratory syndrome. We've been looking at the initial cases being reported in multiple journals, and they all seem to suggest that this did not start at the market. 3 out of 4 cases, the first cases, were not related to the seafood market, the wet market out there. And then 2 weeks later, then we're starting to get, more cases from the seafood market. It looks like it might have started somewhere else, perhaps the weapons lab that's just a few miles away. And it does look like a weaponized virus. Their reaction to the situation looks like a weaponized virus is on the loose. They've shut everything down, roadblocks everywhere. They've pretty much dug trenches around these cities, these ground zeros. And this is just the beginning of of what is going on out there. And we're getting all sorts of reports of, riots and crises and shortages and the like. So we're not getting the full story, but now the stage is shifting, if you will, towards the Western front. And many Western countries are now reporting their first human-to-human transmission domestically. Japan, Taiwan, Germany, Vietnam, France, and America. Second case in Chicago, linked to the first case. France has declared a new case, a doctor at a hospital. We're not sure if it's related to the case we were discussing yesterday where their main hospital out there received a patient that wasn't immediately identified and may have contaminated many other people while waiting in the ER. So we're going to be getting into all of that. There's really a lot of information. The numbers keep changing. They're jumping, rather quickly right now. And best estimates are that the numbers are 10 times worse, if not more, than what they're actually reporting. And we've noticed that, Western countries, America, Europe, and the like have been very reticent to update any of their numbers for fear of having to lock down, their cities and their economies. And you can understand why. I mean, you can't imagine how much this is costing, China right now to shut everything down, from Disneyland to, local businesses. So, this administration is hardcore focused on, making money and not about public safety. I mean, we've seen that with the deregulation of just about everything since this administration took office. But we're not going to get into the politics, but we definitely feel that they're hiding quite a bit of information. There's at least 100 different cases that they've been testing for like a week now. And, usually they can find out in just a few hours if it's positive or not. So they're probably hiding, a very terrible kind of situation. And this virus is spreading right now silently for the most part, under the cover of flu season. And of course, the initial symptoms are very much the same, and people aren't going to go, check themselves in to the hospital for the most part for the flu. And right now, I mean, most countries aren't testing for the coronavirus unless they, come directly from Wuhan or perhaps now China in general. But many other countries have reported cases, and now they're starting to report domestic human-to-human transmissions, which is really the first step to a broader epidemic that is certainly about to, show up in everybody's neighborhoods, kind of like these death towers. How bad will it get? I think it'll really depend on the location. Big cities are always going to get it worse no matter what the issue is. That's why you really don't want to be in these big cities. It's not just the viruses, but it's the crime, it's the the death towers, it's the drugs. Everything's worse in the big cities. But as far as this virus is concerned, it's shown the ability to spread far and wide rather quickly. That's one of the most disturbing aspects of this virus. And, one day it was just in Wuhan, and the next day the entire country is reporting, hundreds of cases in every city. And the numbers are just, jumping exponentially, skyrocketing. We're looking at video of, people trying to escape quarantine, trying to infect other people, people dropping dead. It's almost like, a mini zombie apocalypse out there, to say the least. And people are starting to do strange things to acclimate to their new world. And of course, as soon as, things, start getting stressful, start getting, emergency like, things begin to buckle. And it doesn't take a whole lot for the system to basically, give way. And when the first outbreaks hit, there's going to be a big rush, on supplies, big rush on, going to the hospital. And, those places will end up being, huge infection zones for the most part. We feel that Europe is probably going to get it worse than America, just because European standards are much, less in terms of hygiene and the like. But we'll have to see if any country is able to really lock down their societies like the Chinese have. And that certainly is an advantage that they'll probably retain throughout this epidemic. They're willing to shut everything down and quarantine everyone. Will that happen in America? Will people wear their masks, or will we see riots, Mad Max, and things of that nature? that is left to be resolved. How bad will it get? Well, we won't know for another, week or so. And while the death rate seems rather low right now, again, it takes about uh, 10 days, 2 weeks after infection to really develop a serious form of the disease. And then they can be in treatment for up to 2 weeks after that before they would pass away in many of the cases. So we certainly may not see the death rate spike to its maximum for another 2 weeks or so. And every outbreak kind of begins like this, with the numbers rather small, and it just kind of seems like it's no big deal. But if we look at the timeline, with the Wuhan super virus, the first month it was just a few cases. When it started getting bad, they reported 40 cases, 1 death. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it jumped to like 10,000. Every city is on lockdown. It's like the end of the world over there. So while the cases are only, 25% of the way there, you could say, in America, it won't be long before this thing could get, way in front of everybody, and you just don't know what to do. We recommend people start stocking up on, the things that they would use anyways, because, basic necessities are going to be the first things out of stock, from toilet paper to gloves to masks to disinfectants and the like. We've seen a lot of videos of people queuing all day just for a mask, and you don't want to be that person, ladies and gentlemen. You want to have first aid supplies. You want to have enough water and food to get you by. An outbreak in a big city could potentially last 3 weeks to 3 months, depending on how this will cycle out. And we're seeing quite a wide spectrum of pathologies, which makes us think that there'll be, big flashes as well as sustained infections for quite some time. It's too early to tell exactly how this will end. Eventually it'll plateau, but it may reemerge and there may be a second wave. And given how this is showing up everywhere, there'll most certainly be waves of this coming from other countries as they become like a giant virus reservoir, ready to infect and the like. And viruses tend to move like migratory birds, to be quite honest, from one region to another as the season flows. That's how the flu virus kind of spreads around. People think maybe it just goes dormant or disappears, but it actually just goes into the tropics. And if you pay attention, when flu season starts, it's always like the South that gets hit first, because it's coming from South America basically. So you see like Texas, and from Texas to Tennessee basically kind of light up red, and then it spreads everywhere else. It's weird that it would begin in the South when it should begin in the North, where it's the coldest. But that's kind of besides the point. This drop dead virus is like nothing anyone has ever seen. It looks like it escaped a lab. What other tips can we give people out there? Obviously you want to be well rested. You don't want to, be up until 3 a.m., all that kind of stuff with an outbreak going on. You want to get your 8 hours of sleep. You want, plenty of sunshine and OJ if you can. Fresh fruit is preferable. Lemonade tends to work really well, with fresh squeezed lemons and the like. We seem to have read in the literature something about peroxide being effective. Get some H2O2, oxygenated water, if you will. Works really well in some cases, but we're not calling that a cure or necessarily a remedy. The best strategy is to kind of limit your exposure as much as possible. Viral load makes all the difference, and kind of curtailing the symptoms or the onset of worse symptoms is something that you're going to want to try and focus on if you're feeling the infection kind of come on out there. But just, and that kind of applies to every flu, cold, and the like. Otherwise, good hygiene, being well rested, and, not kind of lingering or loitering in, crowded places is the best kind of advice anybody can give you. But this virus is highly volatile, to say the least. It infects 4 out of 5 people it comes into contact with, according to the scientific literature. Many physicians as well as infectious disease specialists have been infected by this strain of the virus. And even SARS was renowned for infecting people in hospitals, getting around masks and gloves and all of that stuff. So we're expecting the worst. We've been following a couple cases, developing stories in Germany and France, and it looks like Paris might be the next Wuhan. We're paying close attention to what's going on over there. We're seeing a big uptick, and a major incident unfolded at a hospital yesterday and over the weekend, as well as many other cases that have just never been documented. So undoubtedly the first waves have begun, and we fully expect some sort of sustained transmission. How far will it reach before it kind of burns out is hard to say. And right now any kind of prognostic is really kind of speculation, because there's a lot that we don't know about how many people are infected within our shores. But statistically speaking, there could be tens of thousands of tourists from China that have come into America and Europe and planted seeds, and it's just going to take a couple weeks, couple cycles for this thing to flare up and show up as initial cases of severe respiratory distress, as well as drop dead syndrome and the like. So we'll have to see, but it's looking worse and worse. We're going to keep covering this developing story. 2020, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be we're going to be talking about this for probably a good portion of the year, and we'll just have to see where this goes. Of course, this isn't the only demonic virus in circulation right now. There's another virus that's actually out there that we've been talking about, DEV666, and it leaves a very distinct morphology on its victims, and they literally look like demons out there. Demonic morphology, mark of the beast right there on the head. And we've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. We just want to point this out with these examples, but you can see this in your real life out there, in the real world out there, if you pay attention to people in your town. You'll see this morphology. Beware of those people that look like demons, ladies and gentlemen, because they're of the dark side, and it literally is the pages of the Bible playing out before your very eyes. Why do you think it's all about Sodom and Gomorrah and Luciferian ideologies on the television? These people are of the dark side, and it shows. It doesn't get any more obvious than that. And all of your world leaders, politicians, celebrities out there are working for the devil. And of course, they don't mind if a killer virus comes through and takes out people with pre-existing conditions. And that's what this virus is basically trained to do, is to take out people with pre-existing conditions, to lighten the benefit rolls, if you will. Less people on Medicare, Medicaid, taxing the system, collecting their retirement and the like. So it's a win-win for this beast system. And with the rollout of 5G and this Death Star Elon Musk grid, things are only going to get worse. Everything is going to become more lethal, including the common flu. Everybody should be paying attention to these eugenics programs, the terraforming, the fluoride, the vaccines, the pesticides, as well as the indoctrination out there, ladies and gentlemen. In any case, we'll have to leave it there for this broadcast. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll keep you updated as the story develops, as it certainly will in the coming days. We really expect to see where this is going to go in the next week or two, and we have no choice but to be patient. So until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.